October 2019. A 17-year-old girl walks into a police station. Her hands are shaking. She's been carrying a secret for years. And when she finally speaks, her words will destroy everything her father thought he knew about the woman he married, the woman he trusted, the woman who was supposed to protect his daughter.
This story is wild. Latina stepmom assaulting her stepdaughter. Stepmom, stepdaughter, a lesbian affair. Join me, let's unravel this case.
October 2019. A 17-year-old girl walks into a police station. Her hands are shaking. She's been carrying a secret for years. And when she finally speaks, her words will destroy everything her father thought he knew about the woman he married, the woman he trusted, the woman who was supposed to protect his daughter. But here's what makes this case different. 6 months before that police report, Denis Johnson posted a photo on Instagram. In that photo, she's smiling, standing next to her stepmother, Isabella Martinez. The caption read, "The only woman who truly understands me." Both statements are real. Both are documented. Both are true. So what happened between March and October 2019? What changed? Or more importantly, what had been hiding in plain sight all along? This is not a story about strangers. This is not a story about a random act of violence on a dark street. This is a story about family, about trust, about the kind of betrayal that happens behind closed doors, in quiet suburban homes where neighbors wave at each other every morning and nobody suspects a thing. Denis Johnson was just 15 years old when Isabella Martinez became her stepmother. She had already lost her biological mother 3 years earlier, cancer. It happened fast, too fast for a 12-year-old to process. So when her father, Marcus, started dating again, Denise didn't resist. She wanted normalcy. She wanted a family. She wanted someone to fill that empty space her mother had left behind. And for a while, it seemed like Isabella was exactly what they needed. She was warm, caring, present. She showed up to Denise's school events. She cooked family dinners. She stayed up late talking with Denise about boys, about school drama, about life. Things a mother would do, things Denise desperately needed. But something was wrong, and it would take years before anyone noticed.
All right, before we dive deeper, right, let us know in the comments where you are watching from, right? Personally, I want to know how far these cases travels. I really want to know how many countries, how many continents, how many states across the world this story gets to, right? Let's continue. Sit tight. I'm telling you, sit tight. You don't know what's coming. This case is like a puzzle. Let's proceed.
Let's start with what we know for certain. Not rumors, not speculation, just facts. Fact number 1. In June 2016, Isabella Martinez, 34 years old, married Marcus Johnson in a small ceremony in Houston, Texas. Denise was there. She was the maid of honor. Fact number 2. At the time of the marriage, Denise was 15 and living full-time with her father. Her biological mother had passed away in 2013, and Marcus had primary custody. Fact number 3. Between 2017 and 2019, Denise's school attendance dropped by 42%. She went from being an honor roll student to barely showing up. Teachers noticed, but when they asked, Denise always had an excuse: headaches, stomach problems, family emergencies. Fact number 4. In March 2019, Denise started seeing the school counselor. She didn't say much at first, just that she was feeling overwhelmed, anxious, like something was pressing down on her chest and she couldn't breathe. The counselor documented every session. She noted that Denise seemed distant, disconnected, like she was carrying something too heavy to put into words. Fact number 5. On October 14, 2019, Denise gave a formal statement to the Houston Police Department. In that statement, she accused her stepmother, Isabella Martinez, of repeated sexual abuse over a 2-year period. Fact number 6. Within 48 hours, police opened a full investigation. They interviewed teachers, friends, family members. They pulled phone records, text messages, social media posts, everything. Fact number 7. Isabella Martinez denied all allegations. She called them lies. She said Denise was troubled, angry, manipulative. She said this was revenge for being disciplined, for having rules, for being treated like a child instead of an adult. These are the facts, 7 pieces of a puzzle. But facts alone don't tell you the whole story. Facts don't tell you why. They don't tell you how a family can smile in photos while something terrible is happening behind closed doors. They don't tell you how a victim can praise their abuser one day and report them the next. To understand that, we need to go deeper. We need to understand who these people really were. Denis Johnson was born in 2002. She grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Houston. Her parents, Marcus and Helen, were high school sweethearts. By all accounts, it was a happy childhood. Soccer practice on Saturdays, family barbecues, movie nights, normal. Then, in 2013, everything changed. Helen was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months later, she was gone. Denise was 12 years old. Child psychologists describe this as an attachment disruption. When a child loses a primary caregiver, especially a mother, their emotional foundation cracks. They don't just lose a person, they lose their sense of safety, their sense of predictability, their understanding of how the world works. Denise struggled. Her grades dropped. She withdrew from friends. She stopped playing soccer. Marcus tried his best. He took time off work. He went to every school event. He cooked her favorite meals. But he was grieving too, and grief is a heavy thing to carry alone. For 3 years, it was just the two of them, father and daughter, trying to rebuild, trying to find normal again. Then in early 2016, Marcus met Isabella. She was a healthcare assistant at the hospital where Marcus worked as an IT specialist. They started talking during lunch breaks. She was easy to talk to, warm, understanding. She didn't push, she just listened. And slowly, Marcus started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could be a family again. When Marcus proposed to Isabella in April 2016, Denise had already started calling her by her first name. Not Mom, but not Mrs. Martinez either, just Isabella, a sign of familiarity, of trust. At the wedding, Denise gave a speech. She said Isabella made her father happy. She said she was grateful. She said she felt like they were becoming a real family again. And she meant it, because at that moment, she believed it. She had no idea what was coming. Isabella Martinez was born in 1932 in Austin, Texas. She grew up in a working-class family. Her father was a mechanic. Her mother worked at a grocery store. She was the middle child of 5, quiet, responsible, the kind of kid teachers liked. She graduated high school with decent grades and went straight into healthcare training. No college, just certification courses. She became a healthcare assistant and spent most of her 20s working in nursing homes and hospitals. People who knew her described her as dependable, someone who showed up on time, someone who followed instructions, someone who didn't cause problems. But there was something else, something harder to define. Isabella formed attachments quickly, intense attachments. In her 20s, she had several relationships that started fast and ended badly. Friends noticed a pattern. Isabella would meet someone, and within weeks she'd be completely invested, talking about moving in together, planning futures, making promises. And when those relationships ended, she'd spiral. She'd call in sick to work. She'd stop answering her phone. She'd disappear for days. Then she'd come back, reset, and the cycle would start again. Psychologists call this accelerated intimacy formation. It happens when someone craves connection so intensely that they skip the normal stages of relationship building. They go from stranger to soulmate in a matter of weeks. Sometimes it's harmless, just someone who loves deeply and quickly, but sometimes it's a warning sign.
A sign that boundaries are not being respected, that emotional dependence is being weaponized, that control is being disguised as care. By the time Isabella met Marcus in 2016, she was 34. She had never been married, no kids. She told Marcus she had always wanted a family, that she had been waiting for the right person, the right situation. And when she met Denise, she saw an opportunity, not to be a mother exactly, but to be something else, something more, a confidant, a protector, a person who understood. At first, it seemed perfect. Marcus was relieved. Denise was happy. Isabella was attentive. But slowly, very slowly, something shifted. And by the time anyone realized what was happening, it was already too late. Let's reconstruct what happened, month by month, piece by piece. Summer 2016, the wedding happens. Isabella moves into Marcus's house. Denise gets a new room, freshly painted, new furniture. Isabella insists on helping her decorate. They spend hours picking out colors, arranging posters, choosing bedding. It feels like bonding, like mother-daughter time. Marcus is relieved. He had been worried about how Denise would adjust, but she seems happy, lighter, like a weight has been lifted. Fall 2016, Denise starts her sophomore year of high school. Isabella packs her lunches, drives her to school, picks her up. They start a routine. After school, they sit in the kitchen. Isabella asks about Denise's day, about her classes, her friends, her crushes, and Denise talks. For the first time since her mother died, she talks. She tells Isabella things she doesn't tell her father, about feeling lonely, about missing her mom, about not knowing how to fit in anymore. Isabella listens. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't give advice. She just listens. And Denise feels seen, understood, safe. Winter 2016. Marcus starts working night shifts. The hospital is short-staffed, and they need someone to cover IT support overnight. Marcus volunteers. The extra pay will help, and besides, Isabella is home. Denise isn't alone. This is when the boundaries start to blur. At first, it's small things. Isabella suggests they watch a movie together after Marcus leaves for work, just the two of them. They stay up late, talking, laughing, sharing secrets. Then Isabella starts coming into Denise's room at night to check on her, she says, to make sure she's okay, to see if she needs anything. Denise doesn't think much of it. It feels like care, like concern, like what a mother would do. But it's not what a mother would do. It's what a predator does, testing boundaries, normalizing invasion, creating dependency. By spring 2017, Isabella is spending more time with Denise than Marcus is. She knows Denise's schedule better than he does. She knows her moods, her triggers, her fears, and she uses that knowledge, not to protect Denise, but to control her. Spring 2017, Denise's behavior starts to change, subtle at first. She stops responding to texts from friends. She declines invitations to hang out. When people ask why, she shrugs, says she's tired, says she has family stuff, says she just wants to stay home. Her grades slip. Not dramatically, but enough that teachers notice. She goes from A's and B's to B's and C's. She stops participating in class. She sits in the back, head down, earbuds in, invisible. Her school counselor calls her in for a check-in, asks if everything is okay at home. Denise says yes, everything is fine. Great, actually. She likes her stepmom. Her dad is happy. Everything is normal. But the counselor makes a note, because something in Denise's voice doesn't match her words. Something feels off. Summer 2017, Marcus notices that Denise is spending a lot of time alone with Isabella. Movie nights, shopping trips, late-night conversations in the kitchen. He's glad they're close. He thinks it's healthy. He thinks Denise finally has a mother figure again. He has no idea what's really happening, because what's really happening doesn't happen in public. It happens when he's at work, when the house is quiet, when there are no witnesses. Isabella begins to isolate Denise emotionally. She tells Denise that other people don't understand her, that her friends are immature, that her father is too busy to notice her. But Isabella notices. Isabella cares. Isabella is the only one who truly gets her. This is a classic manipulation tactic. Create dependency by convincing the victim that the abuser is their only source of support, their only safe person, their only ally. And it works. Denise pulls away from everyone else. She stops confiding in her friends. She stops asking her father for help with homework. She stops reaching out, because Isabella has convinced her that she doesn't need anyone else. Fall 2017, the abuse escalates. It's no longer just boundary violations, no longer just inappropriate conversations. It becomes physical, and Denise freezes. She doesn't fight, she doesn't scream, she doesn't run, because her brain has entered survival mode, because she's confused, because the person hurting her is also the person she trusts, the person who makes her father happy, the person who tells her she's special, loved, understood. Trauma does not always look like resistance. Sometimes it looks like compliance, like silence, like a child who smiles in family photos while dying inside. By winter 2017, Denise is barely recognizable. She's lost weight, her eyes are hollow, she flinches when people touch her. But nobody notices, because nobody is looking, because predators are good at hiding, and victims are good at pretending. 2018. This is the year everything should have fallen apart, but it doesn't, because Isabella is careful. She knows how to cover her tracks. She knows how to manipulate perception. She knows how to make sure Denise stays silent. The abuse continues, regularly, methodically, always when Marcus is working nights, always when there are no witnesses, always in ways that leave no physical evidence. Investigators later call this access-based exploitation. The abuser doesn't use force, they use opportunity, privacy, authority, and emotional control. They rely on the victim's silence, and they create conditions that make that silence inevitable. Denise's mental health deteriorates. She starts having panic attacks at school, at home, in the middle of the night. She doesn't understand what's happening to her. She doesn't have the language to describe it. She just knows that something is wrong, that her body is reacting to something her mind hasn't fully processed yet. She starts seeing the school counselor more regularly, not because she wants to talk about what's happening, but because the counselor is the only adult who seems to notice that she's struggling. The counselor asks careful questions. Are you safe at home? Is anyone hurting you? Do you need help? And every time, Denise says no, everything is fine, because she's not ready, because she's scared, because part of her still doesn't want to believe that this is really happening. March 2019, something shifts. Denise is scrolling on Instagram. She sees a post from a friend. It's about Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. It's about how abuse doesn't always look like violence, how it can come from people you trust, how it's not your fault. Denise reads it 3 times, then she screenshots it. She doesn't know why, she just does. A few days later, she posts that photo with Isabella, the one that says, "The only woman who truly understands me." People assume it's genuine affection, but it's not. It's a test. Denise is trying to see if anyone will notice the disconnect, the contradiction, the lie she's been living. Nobody does. And that's when Denise realizes something. If she doesn't speak up, nobody will. If she doesn't save herself, nobody will save her. But speaking up is terrifying, because speaking up means everything changes. Her father's marriage ends. The family falls apart. Everyone will know. Everyone will ask questions she doesn't want to answer. So she waits. She builds up the courage. She writes things down. She deletes them. She writes them again.
And slowly, over the next 6 months, she prepares to do the hardest thing she's ever done. September 2019. Denise misses an entire week of school. When she comes back, the counselor pulls her aside. "Denise, this is the 3rd time this semester. Talk to me. What's going on?" And for the first time, Denise doesn't lie. She doesn't say everything is fine. She doesn't make excuses. She just sits there, silent, tears streaming down her face. The counselor waits, because sometimes silence speaks louder than words. After 10 minutes, Denise whispers something. "I need help." That's all she says, but it's enough. The counselor follows protocol. She files a report with Child Protective Services. She documents the conversation. She doesn't push Denise for details. She just makes sure that someone is paying attention. Someone is watching. Someone is ready to act. October 14, 2019. Denise walks into a police station. She's 17 now. Legally, she can make a statement without a parent present, and she does. She tells the detective everything. The timeline, the pattern, the escalation, the manipulation, the isolation, the abuse. The detective listens, takes notes, asks clarifying questions, and when Denise is done, the detective says something that changes everything. "I believe you." Those 3 words, after years of silence, after years of carrying this alone, after years of thinking nobody would believe her, someone does. The investigation moves quickly. Police interview teachers, friends, neighbors. They pull phone records, they analyze text messages, they look for patterns, and the patterns are there. Isabella's work schedule aligned perfectly with Marcus's night shifts. She had opportunity, she had access, she had control. They interview Marcus. He's devastated, angry, in denial. He insists that Denise is lying, that Isabella would never do this, that something else must be going on. But the evidence doesn't lie. The timeline doesn't lie. The behavioral changes don't lie. When police confront Isabella, she does exactly what the detective expected. She denies everything. She calls Denise a liar. She says this is revenge. She says Denise is troubled, manipulative, ungrateful. She's using a tactic called DARVO: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. It's common in these cases. The abuser flips the script, makes themselves the victim, makes the victim the villain. But this time it doesn't work, because the evidence is too strong, the pattern is too clear, the truth is too obvious. Isabella Martinez was arrested on November 3, 2019. She was charged with multiple counts of sexual abuse of a minor. The family fell apart instantly. Marcus filed for divorce. He moved out of the house. He stopped speaking to Isabella. But he also struggled to speak to Denise, because looking at her meant confronting the truth, confronting his failure to see what was happening, confronting the fact that he had brought this person into their home, into their lives, into his daughter's life. Denise moved in with her aunt. She started trauma therapy, 3 sessions a week at first, then twice a week, then once. Recovery is not linear. Some days Denise felt strong, capable, like she was taking her life back. Other days she couldn't get out of bed, couldn't stop crying, couldn't silence the voice in her head that said it was her fault, that she should have said something sooner, that she let this happen. But therapy taught her something important, taught her that trauma responses are survival mechanisms, that freezing is not consent, that silence is not permission, that children are never responsible for the actions of adults, never. The case went to trial in 2021. Denise testified. She sat in that courtroom and told her story out loud, in front of strangers, in front of a jury, in front of Isabella. And she didn't break. She didn't falter. She told the truth. Isabella's defense argued that Denise was a troubled teen, that she had fabricated the allegations, that she was angry about being disciplined, that this was revenge. But the jury didn't believe it, because the evidence was overwhelming. The timeline was consistent. The behavioral changes were documented. The psychological impact was real. In March 2021, Isabella Martinez was found guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison, no possibility of parole for at least 15. When the verdict was read, Denise didn't cry. She didn't smile. She didn't react. She just sat there, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Relief. Not happiness, not closure, just relief, because the truth was finally out, because someone had been held accountable, because she had survived. This case didn't just affect Denise and Isabella, it affected everyone around them. Marcus Johnson struggled with guilt. He blamed himself for not seeing the signs, for working night shifts, for trusting Isabella, for failing to protect his daughter. He went to therapy. He tried to rebuild his relationship with Denise, but the damage was deep. The trust was broken. It took years before they could sit in the same room without tension, without pain, without the weight of everything that had happened. Denise's friends felt betrayed too, because they had seen the Instagram post. They had believed the smile. They had thought Denise was happy. And when the truth came out, they questioned everything. Why didn't she tell us? Why didn't she ask for help? Why did she lie? But Denise didn't lie. She survived, and survival sometimes looks like pretending, like smiling when you're dying inside, like posting pictures that don't match your reality, because showing the world your pain feels more dangerous than hiding it. The school counselor who first reported the case carried her own burden. She wondered if she should have pushed harder, asked more direct questions, filed a report sooner. But she followed protocol. She did what she was trained to do. And ultimately, her actions saved Denise's life. Teachers who had Denise in class looked back at attendance records, at behavioral notes, at the gradual decline, and they realized they had missed it. They had seen a struggling student, but they hadn't seen a victim. This is the insidious nature of family abuse. It hides in plain sight. It disguises itself as normal family dynamics, as typical teenage rebellion, as nothing more than growing pains. And by the time the truth surfaces, the damage is already done. So what do we learn from this? What can we take away from Denis Johnson's story? First, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Denise's school counselor felt that something was off. She couldn't name it, she couldn't prove it, but she paid attention, and that attention saved a life. Second, behavioral changes matter. When a child who used to be social becomes withdrawn, when grades drop, when attendance suffers, when smiles become forced, when energy becomes exhaustion, these are not just phases, these are signals, and we need to pay attention. Third, abuse doesn't always look like violence. It doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it's quiet, insidious, hidden behind closed doors and fake smiles and Instagram posts that say everything is fine. The most dangerous abusers are the ones who know how to blend in, who know how to gain trust, who know how to make people believe they're safe. Fifth, victims are not responsible for their abuse. Denise didn't cause this. She did not invite this. She did not deserve this. And her silence was not consent. It was survival. Fifth, recovery is possible, but it takes time, it takes support, it takes safety, and it takes a willingness to face the pain instead of running from it. Denise is still healing. She probably always will be, but she's alive, she's speaking, she's using her story to help others, and that is strength. Sixth, Families can fracture in an instant. One revelation, one truth, one moment of courage, and everything changes. Marcus lost his wife. Denise lost her stepmother. Their family fell apart. But out of that fracture came something else. Honesty, accountability, a chance to rebuild on a foundation of truth instead of lies. And finally, we learned that the justice system, flawed as it is, can work. Denise was believed. Isabella was held accountable. The truth prevailed. Not because the system is perfect, but because people paid attention. Because evidence was gathered. Because a 17-year-old girl found the courage to speak. And because a detective said 3 words that every victim needs to hear. I believe you. But some questions remain unanswered. We may never fully understand what Isabella Martinez believed, whether she thought she was helping Denise, whether she justified her actions, whether she convinced herself that what she was doing wasn't abuse, or whether she knew exactly what she was doing and did it anyway. We may never know what Marcus missed, what signs he overlooked, what conversations he avoided, what red flags he dismissed, because acknowledging them would have shattered his world. We may never fully comprehend the depth of Denise's pain, the nights she lay awake wondering if anyone would believe her, the moments she almost spoke up but couldn't, the years she carried this secret alone. And we may never know how many other victims are out there, sitting in quiet homes, smiling in family photos, posting on social media, while carrying secrets too heavy to speak. But here's what we do know. Abuse thrives in silence, in secrecy, in spaces where nobody is looking, and the only way to stop it is to pay attention, to ask questions, to believe victims, to hold abusers accountable. Denis Johnson's case is not unique. Cases like this happen every day, in every city, in every neighborhood, in families that look perfect from the outside. The most dangerous betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from people we trust, people we love, people we let into our homes, and by the time the truth surfaces, everything has already changed.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Right? Let me ask you something. If you were Denise's friend, would you have noticed? Would you have? Right? If you were a teacher, would you have noticed? If I survive over there and this story encourages you, speak up, right? You may not necessarily need to tell your parents or your relative. You can tell your pastor, you can tell your community leader, your cultural leader, or your society leader, right? Just speak up. Speaking up doesn't just save you, it saves others from getting abused by that same person. Thank you for watching to this end. You need to subscribe. You have to subscribe, man. This channel needs you. You know this channel needs you. So subscribe so you won't miss stories like this. Thank you.